Right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher, joined as always by the whale capper Drew Dinsick. Today we're going to talk about Team USA moving on to the knockout stage, talk about their path going forward, the matchup with the Netherlands, and then we'll take a look at games on the NFL slate. But Drew, first of all, how do you feel about your country progressing to the round of 16?
It was mixed emotions because I had betting interest in Iran from the Calcutta pool, but at the same time, excited. I mean, I was happy for Team USA in the result, and like what's funny is that you're watching it on a little bit of a delay if you're streaming, and you can hear the neighborhood was like erupting. People were just like screaming across the street, and so something good's about to happen. And it was just like, oh, that was fun. It was a good goal. Sad to see Pulisic go out of the game because of the collision there. Hopefully he's back in time for back in fully fit for the Netherlands match. And I think Team USA maybe a little underrated. Even though I was coming into yesterday's game saying that I thought plus 100 was a bad price, it was they were clearly the better team. They've definitely shown an ability to control an entire half of football now in all three of their matches. So hopefully they give Netherlands a good fight, and they're definitely progressing a very young club obviously towards something super special for 2026.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, is that really looking forward to this USA-Canada World Cup final in 2020.
It feels...
Canada's, I think, handled themselves pretty well in this tournament. And yeah, the USA certainly haven't embarrassed themselves by any means, largely outplaying England and then dominant first half against Wales and then getting the result yesterday, which, I don't know, I always thought was relatively in hand. Wouldn't be too worried. Not like I have a huge rooting interest in the Estados Unidos, but having two American daughters, citizens, I do kind of jump on the bandwagon if needed. They're half Portuguese, so that's probably the bandwagon more to jump on. But that's fine. And I think, to your point, I think the USA do have a real chance against this Netherlands team, which hasn't been that impressive despite getting through the group with ease. It wasn't a very good group. In their second game, they really should have lost. And they handled Qatar yesterday, but I don't know, it's not the most frightening Netherlands team, certainly compared to, I guess, recent vintages, even if they haven't had the most success. You think back to the teams of Arjen Robben and Wesley Sneijder and Robin van Persie, and this team isn't near that caliber to me. So we look at the game and the odds on PointsBet. The Netherlands are minus 107 favorites to win in 90 minutes. The draw is plus 230. The USA are plus 330. But I think that really the most interesting market is naturally who's going to qualify. And the Netherlands are minus 240 and the USA are plus 190. And to me, that's too much respect for the Orange, isn't it?
I would agree with that, and I think a lot of it comes down to what you brought up at the top, that Netherlands comes through from a weak group. They realistically, like XG said, they should have maybe lost to Senegal, and then definitely I thought should have lost to Ecuador. They were lucky to come through with the draw, and they were the least impressive win over Qatar. So I mean, realistically, they may be riding a little bit more of some reputation than actually being the powerhouse that the market expects here. But this is going to be a defensive game. I like the adjustments that the USA manager made coming into his defensive lineup for that third and critical game. I think CCV at center back was pretty outstanding, and kind of going with him as plan A is going to help the USA defensively in this contest. And their goalkeeping has been superlative through three matches here. So, this being sort of a defensive struggle here and kind of going to extra time and or penalty kicks, at 0-0 would not surprise me at all. I think under is the play, or both teams to score no. Maybe USA steals a goal, gets through some. There's one leaky side to that Netherlands defense, and I think if you can kind of avoid Van Dijk in the backfield there, then maybe they can get through and kind of put one in late. But this looks like an under game to me, or both teams to score no. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. I like the look on the under. I think the USA, to me, they should be more like plus 150 to qualify. Like, this Netherlands team just isn't very good. To your point about the first game that they played against Senegal, they were outscored on XG. They got slaughtered by Ecuador in terms of quality of chances, the run of play. They had 0.1 expected goals against Ecuador. Ecuador had 1.7. And look, these aren't powerhouse teams by any means. And just look at the names in the Netherlands squad. Like, it's not that impressive outside of Virgil van Dijk and our golden ball sleeper, Cody Gakpo, who is still too long in the market for me. He scored in every game and gets a relatively favourable matchup in the round of 16, as we talked about yesterday. I mean, yes, Frankie de Jong is excellent, but I mean, outside of de Jong, Van Dijk, Gakpo, there's not a ton there, unless you're a big Memphis Depay guy, and Memphis Depay is fine, but yeah, I think that they are there for the taking. They haven't looked great so far, so I do think the USA are the play. They've been very defensively solid. I take a lot of heart as well from the performance against England, because that's the one. Yeah, that's the one game that's probably going to most resemble the round of 16 match against the Netherlands. So yeah, I think I like the USA at plus 190. As we look elsewhere around the World Cup, though, is there anything at the moment that jumps out to you today, particularly with this Poland-Argentina game?
Oh, man, I'm sweating that one big time. I need a Poland result. I know you need Argentina to come through.
I need Argentina to come second in the group. So,
second in the group. Yeah, that would actually be quite entirely possible. And I think realistically, I think it's not a great matchup for them. Poland, that is. I say them. Like I am Team Poland. But no, I think it's there's been a little bit of just kind of uneasiness about Argentina's buildup in particular, not getting great play out of some of their midfielders, and a little bit of disconnect here between what is a very good defense and what is probably the absolute world class forwards. And so I think Poland may be able to be a little bit disruptive here. Poland is a very defensive minded squad. They really only have Lewandowski, who's capable of slotting a goal here. And this again looks like an opportunity where either Poland does a good job of parking the bus and gets through with a draw or a 1-0 loss, and or this is they do everything in their power to keep this a low scoring game. I mean, the goalkeeping from Poland has been absolutely outstanding so far in this tournament. Hopefully that continues here. You got a little bit of a sleeper for Golden Gloves there, I think. But realistically, Argentina is a very, very scary team to go up against in a do or die situation. And, I think I'm going to have both of these games on because I need Poland to advance in a big way. And, the max pain for me, if you want to root along with me, is Argentina getting just a blowout win and then Mexico getting a blowout win. If that happens, I'm cooked.
Yeah, it's all over for Dr. against that. I need Messi to win this stupid golden ball, and previously, I'm terrified of Kylian Mbappe, and to recycle the joke from last time, I need Messi in the round of 16 to kill the Batman directly, to kill Kylian Mbappe off, because otherwise, in big trouble. I don't want Mexico going to war for me against Kylian Mbappe. Like, it's just going to lose. I need Argentina to knock him out. So I'm cheering for 2 draws in the later games today, which I think is pretty possible. And yeah, my look in Argentina-Poland would be the under as well, under 2.5, which is minus 140 on PointsBet. As someone who I'm more invested in Argentina than any team in this World Cup, but it's not close. By investment, I mean literal financial investment. There's no investment in the fine country of Argentina. But I haven't been impressed at all. They just don't seem to have any kind of connected interplay in their build-up. It's just kick it out to Di Maria, watch him go to work, watch him cook, and watching Angel Di Maria cook in 2022. It's not a great kitchen to be in. And Lionel Messi is just, it's the same Argentina of give him the ball and hope that he does something, which isn't the worst in terms of offensive philosophy, but I'm not too excited about that. The one thing is defensively, they have been good, and they needed some. Saudi Arabia had to score a worldie to take the lead against them. Didn't create many chances, although it is Saudi Arabia. So I think Argentina are solid, but offensively haven't seen a lot from them yet.
That's a fair breakdown. I'm excited for those games. I thought those games were going to be going on while we were doing the show because I thought C played before D today, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to focus? I'm going to be completely invested in those two games. I can't wait. Last question for you. We didn't talk about the other knockout game we know. My Lions of Teranga, Senegal, come through with just an inspirational comeback win, or not really comeback, but they give up the equalizer and then find a second goal to get the win over Ecuador yesterday. Do you give my guys any chance against mighty England?
Sure.
That wasn't very convincing.
Completely downward trajectory ever since the Euro finals, which Gareth Southgate butchered. I'm anti-Southgate in general, I think. Not that I've got anything against the man. I just don't think he's very good at making tactical adjustments. And that reared its head against Italy, against Croatia in the last World Cup. So I think England can definitely be gotten. And Senegal, based on what they've shown so far, based on what they showed, particularly against the Netherlands, I think that gives you some reason for optimism. So go Senegal. It'd be great to kick England out. There's nothing better than seeing England lose. No offense to any English listeners, but it is kind of funny. So definitely we'll be cheering on Senegal. And a reminder, you can watch Spanish language coverage of all the World Cup matches on Telemundo. It's not just because I'm on the NBC payroll, but honestly, it is the best way to watch these games. Soccer was meant to be commentated in Spanish. There is nothing better than listening to an elongated goal. So definitely watch on Telemundo. And just to continue being a company man, just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in the World Cup, college football, and the PGA Tour. It's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Colts and the Cowboys in our Sunday Night 7 contest. All right, let's talk NFL blockbusters. Let's talk Broncos, Ravens. The line is Ravens minus 8.5. The total is a monstrous 38.5. And this is my favorite bet on the board at this point, and it's Ravens minus 8.5. Don't understand why this line is so small. I make it 10.5. I think the Broncos are just an unmitigated car crash at this point. I think the Ravens are a little underrated as well, just by how poorly they've gone in close games. I don't know what John Harbaugh did in a previous life, but he is absolutely cursed since the back end of last season, where no one, I haven't looked this up, but it just has to be the case that no one's got a worse rub out of it on 2-point conversions, rubber green John Harbaugh, who just goes wrong for him every single time, if he's on offense or defense. So I think Baltimore's underrated. They're the second best team by DVOA. Denver are 26th. If you look at overall PFF grade as well, Baltimore 4th, Denver 23rd. I think the bottom is falling out of the Broncos. And the defense isn't what it was at the start of the season either. Bradley Chubb is gone naturally. Pat Surtain has been lit up recently as well. So I just think the Ravens are double digits better than the Broncos. Don't understand this line. I think it will close higher in addition to just being a good bet. So what's your read on Broncos Ravens? Yeah, if you can find an 8.5, I don't think you walk to the window. I think you run to get it, because I agree with you. I do think this is going up as we get closer to kickoff. Both of these teams, things are a little bit of friction in the between the key players and the front offices, but for very different reasons. Lamar Jackson is playing at a second tier MVP level. He hasn't gotten the support from the front office in terms of putting weapons around him to really help him, kind of really take this team to the to the level offensively that they ought to be. And then on the flip side, the Denver locker room literally actively quitting on Russ Wilson in games, like on the sidelines. Like if that's happening and being caught on camera, I can only imagine what is going on behind closed doors there. And if there is one coach that you have low confidence can handle a situation like that, is it not Nathaniel Hackett? I mean, he has shown no ability to really kind of perform the leadership role of head coach at this point in his young tenure. So I think Denver falling apart at the seams is the expectation here. Very, very low total. Can the Denver Broncos totals get any lower? 38.5 now, and which means for Baltimore to cover
8.5, you're going to need them to get 24 points. I think that seems reasonable. And I think, for the most part, you pointed out all the key issues with Denver's defense kind of falling apart at the seams as well. Definitely not the unit that we saw take the field through the first 8 weeks of the season, but both based on player attrition, injury, and just motivation. Like, what are they even playing for at this point? So, Baltimore in a big bounce back spot sounds like a decent play to me. One thing I want to get your take on. So we have an 8.5 point total. 8.5 point side, and at a very, very low total. This falls into the Wong teaser zone, which is to say, if you tease Baltimore 6 points, you take them across 7 and across 3. That captures an enormous amount of equity in terms of win probability, much more than the price you're laying for what is effectively a minus 260 parlay leg. Do you engage much in Wong teasers, and have you seen a better Wong teaser than this one all season?
This is the all-time. This is what Wong teasers were designed for, taking Ravens down to 2.5. I'm all aboard with that. It's the perfect marriage, as you mentioned, of line and low total, and also we love the line anyway. So I take the Ravens straight up, take the Ravens in a Wong teaser, take the Ravens money line, just do it all. I think before we move on to some other Wong teasers as well, because this is an interesting slate for them. I just think the thing that perhaps is being missed is that the Ravens defense is, I think, much better than what people think it is. And I think that it's a little bit anchored to how badly they got lit up against Miami back in week 2, where Tua came back from 21 down to beat them. And I think that was kind of an outlier because, one, the speed of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is an outlier. 2, that Baltimore defense at that point, Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphreys were coming back off severe injuries. Kyle Hamilton, that was his second game in the NFL. He's gotten significantly better. So I do think that this Ravens defense is 9th in DVOA, 9th in PFF grade overall for defensive units. So I think that this is, clearly an above average defense going up against the Denver team that just absolutely cannot move the ball. And then, for all the faults in the Baltimore offense and how it hasn't looked great at times, and they've obviously got their issues with wide receivers, but Lamar Jackson just gives you such a high floor as an offense. So I think that high floor will be enough to get to 21, 24 points, and that's likely very potentially all you need to cover 8.5 and certainly to cover 2.5.
So, question for you about the Baltimore Ravens defense, because I agree with your setup there for this game, because I feel like the Baltimore Ravens defense is anywhere from elite to very beatable, depending on the opponent. And a lot of defense in the NFL is a reflection of your opponent. But I think that Baltimore is sort of at the very top of that list. And it's because their pass defense in particular can be beat by speed. Right? Speed will kill these guys. We saw that particularly in their matchups against the Bengals last year before the secondary got hurt, and we saw that against in the key matchup you brought up this season, which was obviously the Miami game, week 2. And so I think realistically, Baltimore beating up on some of these other teams down the stretch who do not have elite wide receiver weapons, do not have, true speed on the field, seems likely. But I worry a lot about what this defense is going to look like in the AFC playoffs, because the entire picture flips. Now you may have to face Miami again. You may have to face Miami in round 1. Like, that's not off the table that, your wild card game is hosting a Miami Dolphins wild card team in like the 3-6-4-5 matchup. At which point I think you're at a disadvantage in terms of your matchup against the wide receivers. Similarly, Buffalo has fast wide receivers. You still got to play them one more time. Presumably we'll have to play them one more time to get to the later stages of the AFC playoff picture. And then, the other kind of teams in the mix all have young, talented wide receiving cores. Do you worry that could ultimately be a reason that the Baltimore Ravens do not succeed in terms of reaching their potential this season? And I guess, is this a team that you would still take any type of, future position on, even if they're well seated in the AFC?
Not at the current prices. I just think that the Kansas City and Buffalo are in a different sphere of existence. This Baltimore team, that the ceiling is just capped by the lack of wide receivers. And to your point, the issues on defense. I mean, this year, even with getting their guys Humphrey and Peters back and having, Marcus Williams, who's about to come back again and was playing well, and having Kyle Hamilton, they're still 28th in DVOA against deep passes. So they haven't fixed the problem. I am interested in just seeing when Marcus Williams is back with this version of Kyle Hamilton, with Humphrey and Peters, who started poorly and is getting better, with all those guys on the field and getting some continuity in the last 2 months of the season, does that fix the problem? Because that will make the defense a really intimidating unit. And potentially, I mean, it will be a better defense than Kansas City. It potentially could be a better defense than Buffalo if Buffalo don't get healthy. So I think defensively, it's certainly a concern that they haven't fixed this issue. I think the issue last year was exacerbated by, how much Wink loves to blitz and leaving these guys on islands and just getting burned repeatedly by Jamar Chase. So I think it will be better than last year, but the fact that they're still 28th against deep passes isn't ideal. So I certainly think that is a concern. I do think they have a ceiling defensively to fix that a little bit at least, but I just think that offensively, that just with what they're trotting out at receiver, that's ultimately what separates them from Kansas City, from Buffalo. So I think Baltimore, like with this injury to Teron Armstead, which I think is a really big deal, and it's basically, I think, might kick Miami out of a one seed discussion ultimately. And I think it's going to largely not hand the AFC East to Buffalo, but really kind of accentuates Buffalo's position in the driver's seat for that division. So I think the Baltimore are probably the third best team in the AFC right now, given that injury, but Miami have the upside to leap them. And at the current prices, I don't think Baltimore's going to get a one seed and a bye, so I'm not that interested in buying into them. But certainly want to watch once Marcus Williams comes back. All right.
You know what? Real quick, all of this discussion about the Ravens has me, mouth watering here. They go to the Steelers next week. Yeah. Steelers have a couple of good pass catchers. Kenny Pickett playing with a little confidence. Defense can only really be exposed by good wideouts. Like, that's kind of the recipe why we bet the Steelers against the Colts. Like, this is a lot of the same exact kind of setup here. I might be heavy Steelers next week.
The game's in Pittsburgh?
It's in Pittsburgh. Look ahead right now is Baltimore -4.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it would be Baltimore -3, which I think is probably right. So, I would definitely be taking the Steelers, Steelers +4. So if you can get on that look ahead, I would, because I don't think they're close +4. All right. Before we jump into some more Wong teasers, download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in the App Store today. All right, let's talk about some Wong teasers, Drew. So you outlined it before, but it's when a teaser passes through the key numbers of 3 and 7. Gets especially juicy if you are dealing with a low total as well, with less variance in scoring, supposedly. So what are you looking at this week for Wong teasers? Yeah, so if you didn't already know, the NFL market is one of the toughest, if not the toughest, to beat on the regular. These are efficient lines, and they are, you're just not going to find many plus EV plays if you're betting sides and totals in this sport. The exception is the Wong teaser leg, and particularly for certain situations. And the key, you said it off the top there. The key aspects of a Wong, in my mind at least, are you passing through 7 and through 3, because you scoop win probability there that is greater than the price you are paying by moving from a 110 to a -260. You basically need, I think off the top of my head, something like 72% or better in terms of expected win probability to get a teaser leg home. Now, sides are the only part of this conversation. Teasing totals is never going to be plus EV. Teasing across 0 is a no-no. If you haven't already heard those are truths. Now, taking a -8.5, a -8, a -7.5, moving that down 6, you cross 7, you cross 3. Taking a +1.5, taking plus 1.5, +2, and +2.5. Adding 6, you take it across +3 and +7. And so those are
the six key numbers that you're looking at here for Wong teasers, and for whatever reason this week there are plenty of them. The other key aspects that kind of play into a Wong are, what is the overall total of the game, because every point is more valuable the lower the total is. So as you could expect with totals like what we're seeing, the New York Giants Washington Commanders game, that right now Giants are 2.5-point dogs at home. The total is 40.5 points, which means if you tease the Giants down to 8.5, now you only need them to score 2 touchdowns, and they would be expected to cover that Wong teaser leg. In fact, 13 points probably gets it done. You don't even need them to be successful in the red zone. So I think realistically, kind of employing this strategy, particularly as we get later into the season and more is known about these teams, is the way to kind of make or break the end of your season. Otherwise, you are literally trying to find other very fragile angles to be differentiating from market on a lot of these bets. And so I think, kind of circling the ones that make sense this week, New York obviously is at the top of my list. Baltimore, we already talked about, is near the top of the list. And then the secondary ones that, I would key on, Seattle is laying 7.5 right now at a Rams team that is missing basically every one of their top line players. That is a total of in the 41.5 range. That is also very, very, very low. So basically Seattle defense needs to hold the Rams to, say, 20 points. That seems very realistic if it's Wolford or if it's Bryce Perkins out there. So Seattle is the third kind of most obvious teaser leg after Baltimore and New York. And then the other ones that popped for me were Detroit at +1.5 at home. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, taking them out to 7.5 is a solid leg. Detroit has backdoored a number of teams that are much better than the Jacksonville Jaguars this season. So expecting that to land at around 1 score is a reasonable expectation. And then the last two that caught my eye were the Las Vegas Raiders, taking them out to 7.5. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, taking them out to 8. So I think that's kind of the keys 6 legs that you should look at in terms of filling out teasers this week. And just for the sake of kind of transparency, I'm doing a full-on round robin of all of these. So
I was about to say, that's the play when there's this many. There's basically 7 on the board that you can put through 3 and put through 7 and just put them all in a round robin, do it by 2s or even do it by 3s if you're feeling particularly confident. I think, I like the Giants +2.5 anyway. I think so. Minus 8.5. So I think those are definitely the 2 best ones. And Seattle, I'm very concerned about this Seattle defense, which was dreadful, but it is the Rams, so obviously they warrant a spot as well in the round robin too.
I'm giving Seattle a total pass for last week. What? Young defense coming off of a bye, exceeded their expectations all over the entire first half of the year. That is the type of spot where a unit or a team in general lets down. They're well coached though. They're very clear, clearly, like Pete Carroll's been through this enough time with young teams. Like he knows how to get these guys' attention. They're going to be embarrassed for their performance last week. God knows how many times they've watched that, the Josh Jacobs touchdown in the film review leading up to this game. So I think you get an honest effort out of the Seattle defense, and I like a lot of those young players. Like it's a good young core, and I think they can keep the Rams here in the teens, if not lower.
Yeah, I think like the defense, I don't think it's good, but it shouldn't be. I mean, they look like the 32nd defense. Yeah,
they did.
I guess it was a complete joke. They had no prayer, and they needed, they needed 2 interceptions. Derek Carr, they had 2 interceptions and got stuffed on 4th and 1, and still gave up 34 in regulation. Like it was a complete joke. But I do think, they're not that bad. Like Woolen, Diggs, Neal, and Wosu, like these are good defensive players, so they should have enough to be able to contain the might of Bryce Perkins. So I think they should cover certainly 1.5. So the round robin is the play there, and make sure you get some Ravens, please, just for the love of God, take some Ravens down to 2.5, because if you wait till Sunday, you're doing 6-point teaser, you're going to be getting +4 on the Ravens. I think that should close positively. All right. That was fun. Don't forget to check out NBCSportsEdge.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And actually, we've got a viewer question on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If we want to hit that before we go, what are your thoughts on alternate lines taking more or less than the 6?
It is if you're taking more than the 6, you're paying a higher fig. Like, if you're taking 6.5 or 7 on the teaser, it needs to be an extremely small subset where that's plus EV. And there's a cheat code basically to calculate your EV on all of these. Any teaser leg, you can, figure out the implied, take your price, convert it to implied probability, divide it, take the square root of that, and you're going to get the implied probability of a given leg, right? If you look at I have, let's say I'm taking, let's say we missed this podcast and it's Ravens 9, and I really want to take the Ravens to 2.5, right? You go look at what the price at Pinnacle or any market making shop for Ravens minus 2.5 is, compare that to the price that you're laying in your teaser, and you'll know if you're plus EV or not.
Yep. Australia just scored against Denmark as well.
Oh, Australia through.
See you guys in the final. But let's believe. Yeah, I think with ultimate lines, like the general
Socceroos
1-0, surely they can't blow it from here, can they? They just need a draw. So hopefully they can hold on. Lecky with the goal. With alternate lines, like my philosophy generally is that you take alternates if there is extreme variance. So like Deshaun Watson, for interest, like he is one of the most highly variable players in NFL history right now because we have no idea what he's going to be. So potentially look to extend out the bands and be taking, both sides of it really, like Houston plus 2.5, and the Browns to win by 20 plus or whatever. But at the same time, it is generally just better just to take what the line is because there's less vig in the line. Yeah. If it's minus 110 each side, usually books will put in a little bit more, and you're probably taking closer to minus 114 each side. So alts are better if they're accentuating the edge on the line in the first place. All right. I'll close out by saying that if you're listening to us in podcast form, please don't forget to rate and subscribe us. Go Socceroos. Hopefully they can hold on here, and we'll be back tomorrow.